Welcome back to another episode of the Jesus Cartel. Excited to be here as always. Clay, how are you feeling?
Man, things are good. I'm feeling accomplished with a lot of things that we've been doing lately, and I like to feel accomplished. I like to feel like we're doing different things. Hey, the weather feels good right now. You know, it's not too cold. It's the temperatures, they say, are real cold and stuff. But, man, right now in the middle of the day with the sun shining, it's really not that bad.
Yeah, but it's coming.
You know,
it's coming.
People worry about what's coming a lot more than today and what's going on today. And I understand we need to make preparations for the future. It took about 5 minutes yesterday for my mom and Cooper to go put these little things on the pipes and stuff, you know. And do want to make sure that we got some gas in the generator and a case of water or two, but really don't want to be so worried about what's coming that we can't enjoy today, because today is really a beautiful day.
Yeah, that's true. So
how are things with you?
I can receive that. Man, things are great with me. Last podcast we talked a little bit about me coming back from having the baby and just being not where I want to be in terms of work and, some things that, not being as efficient as I'm used to being, because I've got so many other things that require immediate attention between the new baby and the sick kids and stuff like that, and the recovering wife. And it's been a week, and I'm already almost a month ahead of everything again.
Yeah, I was just to say, this seems like this week you've really hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
Yeah, and so we're only 3 days into the week, and,
Right.
and I'm almost a month ahead of everything.
Yep.
And so I feel great again.
Amen.
You know what I mean?
like
It's
it.
like that to me is part of the reason why we tell people, and you semi-alluded to it with your first comment. I know you were, I guess you weren't joking, but, we were just talking about the weather. But how true is that with other stuff? Like so many people in my situation, they would have stressed themselves to death. I took a breath because I know, and I was able to take a breath because I know as soon as I get back, I'll crush this. Just I take a breath, be where you got to be right now. You'll crush it when you get back. And 3 days in, and here we are. Like now, I'm looking for stuff to do.
Well, and something that we kind of alluded to last week, but just to bring back up, is that we didn't know that you were having a baby right now. Mm-hmm. We thought that it'd be a few more weeks down the road. But because you are who you are, you weren't behind.
Yeah.
Just in everyday life, you were ahead.
Yeah.
And because you were ahead, you never really were behind, even with the time you wasn't there. Now, because you like to stay ahead, in your mind, you were starting to get behind, which causes a little bit of frustration or whatever.
Yeah.
We don't want to use the A word or anything because, we're not at that level to where, we're tripping.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're starting to get a little frustrated because you're used to being ahead. Mm-hmm. Now, whereas if you're a person that puts everything off and you had a lot of things to accomplish and you hadn't got to them yet, and then all of a sudden something like what happened, mm-hmm. Now that could be devastating.
Sure.
Not just to your psyche, mm-hmm. but in reality.
Yeah.
You could lose your job.
Yeah.
You could lose your career. You could lose respect. You could lose all kind of different things because you were behind. Nobody really knew you were behind. Now the whole world knows that not only are you way behind, but you have sold the bag.
Sure.
You dropped the ball big time. And so by just training yourself to stay ahead of the game, I don't want to say, training yourself to look for the shoe to drop or whatever, but it's not about what could go wrong. It's just being prepared in general.
Yeah.
And by you being prepared and being ahead of time in general, then if something bad does happen, and this is not bad or just adversity happens, then, hey, you're prepared.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we saw that, but I think that I don't necessarily think it's a testament to you because you are this way. This isn't something you did.
Yeah.
This is who you are. But I think it is a great learning point for a lot of other people.
Yeah, and I do always think about the worst thing that could happen. I don't worry about the worst thing that could happen, but like if we're planning an event, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? No one show up.
Right.
That's the worst thing that could happen. Okay,
How
how do
we
I make
prevent
sure that doesn't happen?
Right.
You know what I mean? What if it happens anyways? What if we get here and 4 people come? How do I make this still a successful event? And so, like, I do start at worst case scenario and back my way up. That's why a lot of people, when things go horribly wrong and everybody's like, what do we do? What do we do? People are like, just figure out where Andrew is, call him, and he'll know what to do.
He's got a plan.
Because I thought about it already,
Right.
you know. And it seems weird that people would do that, but I don't know why. But it's always seemed like the most comforting thing to me to know that I've got a plan if the worst stuff happens.
And as long as you can do that and not dwell on it,
Sure.
then
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah.
As long as you start there but don't finish there, it's fine. Or as long as you have it and you go put it to the side, you're fine. But if you're so worried about what the weather's going to be on Monday,
Yeah.
that we can't enjoy this beautiful day today, then that's when there's an issue.
Yeah.
You know?
No, totally. And you know, for me, like you were kind of saying, being ahead is my normal. And so even though I wasn't behind, it felt behind because my normal is ahead. And so you'll enjoy this because, you know, I had about an hour of phone meetings this morning when I got there. It was the first thing I told you when I came in. And I was talking to the lady that I had to meet with on some, you know, we're talking federal or state government paperwork, stuff like that. And, you know, this is one of the things I'm used to being way ahead on. And so we got some calls, and she's like, you know, Andrew, you know, most of these are already done. I was like, what? And she started going through my list, and over half of the list was already done. And I was like, I don't understand. And she goes, it looks like you did all this paperwork on December 12th. And I was like, I guess I did. You know what I mean? And so, like, even in my own, I had still worked myself ahead knowing that there was a possibility that I could have this baby at an unexpected time, that I did paperwork over a month ahead of time that wasn't really needed to be done until today, which is January 10th is when we're recording, and I did it on December the 12th, knowing that there was a chance that I might be in a pickle later, and so I threw myself way ahead.
But when was Maddox Paul supposed to be here?
January 4th.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so if he would have come January the 4th, then
I would have needed
this
that.
paperwork would have been late if you wouldn't have done it ahead of time.
Yeah, and I had just forgotten that I had done, you know,
ahead of
I
time,
put myself almost 2 months ahead and had forgotten about it. And so it was I beat the mail. Usually we get the mail that says you need to do it. I did it before the mail came. Mm-hmm. And so, man, it's I say all that to say I enjoy living this way.
Yes.
And a lot of people think that it would be stressful to, like, hold yourself to these standards and always demand excellence of yourself and be prepared for every situation, even the worst ones. It's like, man, I sleep so good at night because I know I've done everything I could do. The rest is up to the Lord. And we've talked about it. You know, I'm not satisfied with my own effort. You know, I put my own effort out, and then I'm like, all right, Lord, I did what I know how to do. You know, I'm leaving the rest to you, and really, it's all up to Him. You know what I mean? It's not just the rest. You know, we say the rest, but really, man, isn't it all Him and the things that He's prepared in our hearts and did in our lives and stuff? And so, man, I feel great.
Yeah, something that I hear of on the work side is, what about if you do this paperwork and then you don't need it? Mm-hmm. Like, did you do it during work hours? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Were you getting paid the whole time? Yep. So what?
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of that way with Christianity and the way we live our lives and stuff. You know, we're not looking for the minimum standards. Mm-hmm. We're not trying to see what the least we can do and get by with. Mm-hmm. So what if I do some things that I didn't have to do?
Yeah.
So what if I was nice to somebody I didn't have to and God didn't even notice? You know, I'm not looking for the minimum standards.
Yeah.
I want to do it all.
I have a beautiful segue into our Get to Know You segment question, because what you just said is, you know, it's the old metaphor is, you know, 2 farmers prayed for rain, but one prepared the field. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, you know, should I do the paperwork? What if I don't need it? It's like, you just prepare the field. You know, let the expectation be that everything that you're trying to do is going to work out. You know, and if you're wrong, oh well. You know what I mean? You didn't waste time. But what if it does rain? and God did answer your prayer, and you hadn't done anything you were supposed to do to receive the blessing. It's like, man, you're going to kick yourself. And so our Get to Know You segment question, oddly enough, somebody shot me a message and said, hey, you know, you live in a farming community. What do you and Clay know about farming? And so I thought that was such a great question. It's kind of off the wall, and I like off the wall type questions. So Clay, what do you know about farming, man?
Man, this is this is a good question, and good question. And so, you know, I grew up in Crowell, Louisiana, in Bush's Curve, and grew up, and my mom that lived behind us had, you know, somewhat of a farm in the sense of, you know, she had chickens and cows and horses and turkeys and, you know, different things like that. She had, you know, just all kind of different animals and stuff. There was a field in between our house and her house that would be planted with different crops and stuff that I would go through, just a little small, probably a 5-acre field or something, you know. And so I grew up, you know, kind of in what we call a farm, you know, in a country-style farm, but not necessarily farming, you know. Yeah. So I grew up milking cows and gathering eggs and different things like that behind the house. But then at 12, we moved to town, and, you know, the big city of Winsboro, and we moved to town and lived on one of the nicer streets in Winsboro and stuff. And I didn't do, you know, any farming or stuff like that. Outdoors was us riding bicycles and playing basketball. And then I went to college for a year, and then a buddy of mine got me a job checking cotton in the summertime. So for a couple summers, I would walk up and down cotton fields, and I would check for different bugs and everything. So I knew, you know, what percent of that field had aphids or, you know, or different insects and different things like that, because boll weevils and stuff like that, because we would keep up with those numbers. So I learned a little bit about chemicals and what chemicals killed this, and, you know, what was a good percentage and that percentage. And then after that, didn't really have anything to do with farming for many years. Was in the insurance business, you know, and all that. And then I met my best friend, Jeff Bowden. And so Jeff was a big farmer in Mangle, and we become friends, and we couldn't have been more opposite of each other. You know, he was a farmer and I wasn't, you know, and so, but God told us both to have a relationship with each other. So we both, you know, learned what the other one did and learned what the other one liked, and we just really intentionally became friends. And but when we would go do stuff, everybody knew that I was what they call green. You know, I didn't know how to do anything when it come to the outdoors and stuff like that compared to most anybody else around here, you know. And so even, you know, even driving a truck and not on a highway, you know, I could get stuck with the best of them. Or, you know, walking out of the woods, I didn't know, you know, which way to go. And then in farming and stuff, man, you know, I wanted to learn just to hang out with my friend, you know. Yeah. And then one time he asked me, he was real busy and had a lot going on, but he came to church, even though he probably, you know, shouldn't have for time. And he came to church and he goes, yeah, man, I gotta go bale hay, and I gotta rake hay and stuff this afternoon. And I was like, well, look, if you need me, you let me know. And he said, okay. Well, in a little while, I was getting ready for my Sunday nap, and he called me. He said, man, are you sure you don't mind raking hay? I said, man, I don't, you know, and if that's what you need, I'd love to come do it for you, you know. So I get there, and I'm thinking, man, you know, I'm fixing to get a rake, and I'm going to rake this hay, and my buddy needs it, so I can do that. And next thing I know, he puts me on a tractor, and that has a rake behind it, apparently. And I'm supposed to rake the hay, and then he is going to bale the hay. And that was a different experience. Yeah, I bet. Because I've never driven a tractor before, never driven a tractor with implements before, and never done those things. And you know what? I didn't die, and I didn't tear up the tractor. And I wouldn't say I did a good job, but I did the job that he needed done, you know, in order for him to do his part, you know. Now, since then, I've got several really good friends that are farmers, and man, I pray for their crops, and I want to learn, so I've learned a little more about farming just so I could pray for them and just so I could be a friend to them. And then when I became the police juryman for 4 years there, I had to learn even more about farming because I had to learn more about their drainage and what they needed and what they didn't need, and what helped them and what didn't help them. So over the years I've learned more and more. If you ask me to go farm a field right now, there's no way possible,
Yeah.
But I'm at least have learned enough to where I can be a friend to the farmer, and that I can pray specifically for the farmer and have a decent conversation with them. As long as they know that I only have this knowledge because I tried really hard because I care about their relationship.
Yeah.
But I also respect the farmer because the Bible talks so much, Jesus talks so many parables about farming and stuff. And I think that those lessons are very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's my long answer.
Yeah.
Andrew, what do you know about farming?
Not much. Yeah,
What a
not
great
much.
answer.
I know a lot more about farmers than I know about farming.
There you go.
I've got to know farmers very, very well, and so I got a lot of respect for the job. And it's hard work. There's obviously a lot more technology in farming than there used to be, and so work is constantly kind of shifting and changing. It's still hard work, but more than anything, when it comes to farmers, it's a faith work, because there's a lot that has to go right in nature for it to all work out. And no matter how hard you work or how well you do, there's some elements of it that you just don't have any control of. And, I think that that's probably why there's so much parallel within Scripture about farming and farmers, is because, at the end of the day, like, I can get myself a month ahead with what I do. They can't, and even if they did, too much rain or not enough rain, either way, could knock that whole thing sideways. And so I can see the kinsmanship of a farmer and their relationship with the Lord, and how you literally have to kind of daily walk in lockstep to be able to remain sane doing something like that, because it's similar-ish to some work that my family did. My family was flood insurance adjusters, has been my whole life, and if there's storms, there's work. If there's not storms, there's not work. And so you might have a couple of good years, and then you might have a couple of not just bad years, of nothing years, of $0 years. And if you're not squared away with the Lord in those times, it's very easy to get thrown off kilter and turn this way or that way. And, it's easy to question your faith. It's easy to question whether or not God exists when you're in the middle of struggle. And uncertainty, to me, is worse than struggle. I've been in some bad spots and had faith. I've been in some uncertain spots, and that's really where I found difficulty in my walk with the Lord, is in the uncertainty, not in the bad. Because in the bad, I'm just begging to be pulled out of it, But in the uncertainty, I don't know what it is about it, but it almost seems worse. And so, I don't know much about farming. I have learned a lot more in the last few years than, because where I'm from is more woods, not fields. And so we don't have a lot of crops and stuff like that. We've got a ton of woods. Everybody hunts, everybody fishes, but nobody really, or I say nobody, there's not a lot of farming in DeVille. There's plenty of space for it. I don't know why there's not much farming. It might not be good soil. I don't know. But you just don't see a good amount of it. And so, with all of that being said, it's something I'm interested in learning more about. Always have been, just because, like you said, it's so commonly paralleled, and I think the more I understand it, the more those analogies and metaphors and parables will mean to me, the more I can kind of grab a hold of some of those truths. And so that's kind of my spiel on farming. Now, I have thrown a lot of hay.
Yeah.
I've thrown a lot of hay. We did that every year. And so, me and my buddies all through school, we'd get a phone call, hey, it's time to start throwing some hay. And we've done a ton of that, but I don't consider that farming.
Well, and when you were talking about, the uncertainty is the worst. And I think that's the biggest thing that the farmers have to deal with.
Yeah.
When there's a drought, they know it's a drought. And sometimes insurance will pull it out, sometimes it won't or whatever, but they know it's difficult,
Yeah.
But when there's uncertainty, that's when it can become difficult. And that's where a lot of farmers get into that poor, pitiful me attitude and stuff, is because they're constantly having to deal with adversity,
Yep.
Which can be difficult. And it is very much a faith journey. Another one of my buddies, Jerry Ward, he's been buying some land over the last few years and farming more acres than he did before. And every time he gets another piece of land, whether he rents it or buys it or whatever, he calls me and we go out there and pray for it.
Yeah.
And we pray over the land before he really does anything on the land. Why? Because it's such a big faith walk, not when things get difficult, but from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Just going out there and tilling the land or doing anything on the land whatsoever is a big faith walk, and it's so much controlled by the weather and the climate and everything. And so he can know that you're supposed to plant seed on February the 18th. But if the ground's not right, you can't plant seed then,
Yeah.
So you have to pray about it way ahead of time and have faith and be able to walk this thing out. So anyhow, I think we both know a lot more about farmers than we know about farming.
Yeah.
But I think both's important in our community.
Yeah. I also know it's getting way more expensive to do. And so that's been something, because I think a lot of people kind of have a mindset that farmers just make a whole bunch of money. And I'm not saying that you can't make a good living farming by any means. You absolutely can. But you're taking on a mass amount of debt, all on hope and faith. You know what I mean? And so it's from what I understand, and I could be dead wrong here, and please, any farmer listening, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you take all the debt in on the front end just in hopes that you end up making it back later. That's at least how it appears to someone who doesn't know the business, which, golly, man, I can't imagine if, working at Fresh Start, if January 1st I had to take on, this much debt in hopes that everything works out and I do a good job, and then all the weather happens to be right and we can take in enough clients and not know. That would definitely change whether or not I work this job, And so I can imagine that's another thing that they have some difficulty with, is like, man, do I need to keep doing this? Do I need to do this to myself again? And then you get up in age and that stress hits different as you start to have health problems and stuff like that. Now, can I bear the stress of the uncertainty? And it's, man, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yes, hey, Andrew, I got this opportunity for you, and here's what we want to do. We want you to give us $40,000, and then we're going to start giving you, nothing. You give us $40,000, we're not going to give you anything. And then if the right amount of clients come in, which is a good, solid, average amount of clients, if that amount of clients come in at the end of the year, we could give you $38,000 to $42,000 of your money back.
Yeah.
And you gave us 40. If it's good, we may give you 38. If it's better, we may give you 42. Now, there is a possibility if everything goes just right, you could get 50 or maybe 51 or whatever. But there's also a possibility that we never give you anything.
Yeah, that's tough.
After you work
tough.
for the next year. Hey, that's difficult.
Yeah.
That's a hard sell.
Yeah. For sure, sure. It's
are
also a family trade in a lot of instances, which I really enjoy.
Yeah.
To see it, pass from father to son, and I think it means more when you have that kind of history. I think there's history in the families around here. You don't hear of a lot of people just like, you know what, I think I'll start farming. No one in my family's ever done it. I've never done it. I picked up a Farming for Dummies book from Books A Million the other day. I figured I'd give it a shot. There's some connection, there's some history, and there's this, my dad and his dad worked these fields, and that's cool. A lot of memories, a lot of really rich culture, I guess I would call it, in that community, which is neat. So, moving on to our viewer question of the week, man. This is an interesting question. I'm trying to figure out the best way to word it. Basically, we live in a culture today that is there's a lot of people seeking something. We've talked about that before. Everybody seems to be searching for something. And I think a lot of people would define that something as purpose. They're searching for purpose. And you got all of these, millions and billions of people searching for their purpose in the world, which is kind of in my personal opinion, it's kind of just like a weird thing for everybody to be doing at the same time. Because it feels like there's got to be some people that know. And so we live in a purpose-seeking culture, it seems. What are your thoughts about that as a whole? Do you think that that's a good thing? Do you think that it's a bad thing? How has that kind of played out as far as what you've seen or haven't seen? Or am I way off base in thinking that it's kind of that way?
Right. So, so I did know about this question ahead of time. Annalise came in from Dallas, and she said, hey, this would be a good question, so I texted it to Andrew and then kind of forgot about it from there.
You didn't text it to Andrew.
Oh, I didn't text it to Andrew. No. I told you about it.
You told me some version of the question.
So I told you some version of the question, and then, hadn't thought about it since. But when she asked me, I did think it was a really good question, and I kind of gave her a little bit of my answer. And so I think that a lot of people that say they're seeking purpose, it's really a cop-out for a lot of people. Now, we're going to we're going to move into the other people in just a minute, but I think for a lot of people, it's just they feel like they're not complete. They feel like something's missing. But I think a lot of it's just they're really talking more about a job. They don't feel as fulfilled in their job as what they can. A lot of it's just because they don't like jobs and they don't like working and they don't like, doing those things. And then they hear people say, well, if it feels like a job, then it is. There should be something that you can do that doesn't feel like a job. And I'm thinking, man, this is ridiculous, And but I really think, not trying to get too passionate about it, but I really think that a lot of people that are really say they're really trying to find their purpose are really just a little lazy and maybe not real passionate about where they are or whatever, are not real happy in their in their occupation.
Yeah. Because
I feel like our purpose as a Christian is to do good works for the kingdom of God, which He prepared us in advance to do. I feel like that is our great purpose. Now, I think we're all supposed to do that. I don't think that's just for pastors. I don't think it's just for, religious leaders or Christian leaders or whatever. I think that that's what God has called us all to do. Now,
sure,
we all have different ways of getting there. And we all have different avenues, and some of us are farmers, and some of us are not. And some of us are full-time ministers, and sometimes some of us are ministering, on our jobs and the way that we act and different things like that. But yeah, I should have led with this. We know that there's a lot of people seeking their purpose. I mean, one of the highest rated Christian books of all time is The Purpose-Driven Life, by Rick Warren, which is a great book, and it's fine, and and it's cool for a lot of people and stuff. But for me, it's just like, man, I know your purpose. I know what you're supposed to do. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know what you're supposed to do, and I think they do too. It's just a lot of times they hadn't bought into it.
Yeah.
A lot of times they haven't just decided to do what God's called them to do. I talked to a young man this morning that you had been ministering to, and he's been, trying to figure out things for the last few days and everything. And then yesterday, God gave him a word, and it was the same word that I had for him, and it was the same word that I basically gave him this morning. Is you're already doing those things.
Yeah,
you're doing exactly what God's called you to do right now.
Yeah,
and a lot of people don't understand that. That hey man, living your life, doing what God's called you to do, having your family and being in church and teaching your kids the way they're supposed to be and all this kind of different things is your purpose. It is your calling. And people see those things in your life and they're drawn to the kingdom of God, or they're not.
Yeah.
Based off of if you're walking this thing out or not. So that's my initial thoughts there, is that a lot of it I think is a cop-out, and then on the other side I think a lot of people are doing it, they just don't realize it, and then there's also people that just are scared to step into what God's already showed them. That's just good. Some opening thoughts.
That's good. That's really good, and really, we could just expound on those things and make an episode out of that without adding anything additionally. I think that, if I'm honest, we talking about, people kind of being lazy, and we do live in a lazy culture right now, and it's not a good thing, at least in the West. Western hemisphere, not Western U.S. or West Louisiana. There is very much, everybody's looking to get something without giving anything. What can I get for free? Who's going to give me the discount? And that's kind of bled into our society in a really negative way. And so I agree, people aren't really looking for purpose. They're looking for the route with the least resistance. How can I get the most by doing the least? And I think they were fooled, because there are some people who are successfully doing that. You got the world of TikTok and influencers, Instagram influencers or whatever, who happen to be really strong or really good looking or whatever, and so they got 1 million or so followers. They're idiots, but they got 1 million or so followers, and because there's so many people following their terrible points of view, people are willing to pay them to go all over the world and be idiots. And people are like, man, I'm an idiot. I could do that. And it's like, that's nothing to aspire to be.
Right.
There is no purpose in that. I'm not saying having influence is bad. Would I love to have 1 million people tuned into the things that I have to say?
Or Jesus Cartel.
Yeah,
right?
Sure. Of course. Influence is a great thing, but influence doesn't equal purpose. And I think that's where people get jammed up, is they think that having a lot of influence means you have a lot of purpose or you're very important. And that's not true. Jesus was the single most influential, the single most intelligent, in tune with God person that ever existed. And if you actually look at his following, his true following was about 120 while he lived. About 120. You got the disciples, but you had a lot of people that followed him. It was about 120 people. Why? If he was perfect and everything he said was true, and he healed all these people and he fed all these people, it was because people weren't looking for purpose. If everybody was looking for purpose, everybody would have been where he was. They were looking for something else. And so I agree. I don't think there's many people looking for purpose. I think there's a lot of people that say that they're looking for purpose and hope that somehow they stumble into it, and that it's very easy. But the reality is we as humans were created to work. When we were created initially, before the fall, man was in charge of everything. Being in charge of things is work. If there was no work to be done, no one would have been in charge. He would have just done whatever, and it wouldn't have mattered. But that wasn't what happened. He was given authority over things. That means there was supposed to be an order to things, and he was expected to keep that order. It didn't become toilsome until after the fall, right. And so that's just kind of a byproduct of the fact that man fell. Is now the labor doesn't feel so good to a lot of people, and so, but I can tell you the labor that I do doesn't feel bad. I feel like through my relationship with the Lord, He has restored to me the joy of labor and the joy of work. Strange as that may sound, but I enjoy the things that I do. And that's the other part. I think a lot of people are looking for that. And you talked about like work shouldn't feel like work. The things I do are very difficult. They take a lot of time. They take a lot of focus. And a lot of times they take time that I'd rather not give at that moment. You know, there's other places I'd rather be doing or other place I'd rather be than be here right now typing this stuff into a computer. 100%. I'd love to have been hunting all day today. That's not what I'm doing though, you know. But that's not the same. That's not like, oh well, you know, if I can't be hunting and that be how I make my living, then you know I'm obviously not doing the right thing. You're silly. It's supposed to.
But we hear that a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be. I don't want to say difficult. Difficult is the word that keeps coming to mind, but I don't really mean that. It's not all supposed to be convenient. Mm-hmm. Let me say it like that. It's not all supposed to be convenient. Life is not supposed to be you get to do whatever you want whenever you want to. That's not life. That's not what you were created for. That's not what Adam would have done even if man never fell. He still wouldn't have done whatever he wanted whenever he wanted to. He had a task to maintain order. And we, as people, we find our purpose not through our thoughts, not through, oh man, let me just think about what I might want to do or what could be beneficial for me. You find purpose through action. Mm-hmm. How many kids do we know go to college because they want to be a sports reporter? I tried to think of something. I don't know anybody going because I didn't want anybody to feel like I'm talking about them. I got family members that go for all different reasons. And so I almost said one and I was like, oh no, this person's going to get mad. But they go because they want to be a sports reporter. And then they start to study what you have to know to be a sports reporter. And then 2 years in, they're like, I don't want to be a sports reporter. This is terrible.
Right.
But they found it through action. They didn't find it through sitting at the house thinking about what they would rather do. You know, you find your purpose through action. It gets refined. It gets more closed in. And, you know, you do something similar. Now, I'm not a sports reporter. I'm a sports therapist. Now I'm a physical therapist. I'm still in the same. And so, you know, God will refine you and he'll lead you to little different avenues. He'll introduce you to different people. He'll speak to you directly sometimes and reveal things through his word and through prayer. There's all kinds of different avenues that God uses. But you have to do something. You got to do something. You can't sit and do nothing. And, you know, the biggest thing that comes to mind with that is, and I mentioned it to you the other day when you were kind of telling me about the question, it's like, I know so many people who want to start working out and eating better. But instead of starting to work out and eating better, they spend 6 months trying to research the perfect workout and the perfect diet. And they won't start until they figure out what it is. And it's like, that's not how you find it. That's not how you find it. You find it through doing, through action. And so that's kind of my opening thought on all of that.
Yeah, and then on the work deal, you know, God didn't give Adam and Eve, he gave Adam and Eve the garden to enjoy.
Yeah.
He didn't give them the garden just to hang out. He gave them the garden to work in, you know, and he knew that they would find purpose in working in the garden.
Yep.
You know, so as we do what God has given us to do, we find purpose. But, you know, with the very first people, it was to work.
Yeah.
It wasn't just to hang out. Now, you know, a good, healthy balance there is a great thing. We're not saying to be workaholics your whole life and everything. But if work is your focus or one of your main focuses for a little while, that's not terrible either. You know, we just can't, you know, let it stay that way forever. But, you know, there's something special, you know, about working with your hands and doing those things. That's the reason why we respect the farmer, and that's the reason why Jesus used farming a lot, is because there's a lot to learn from working with your hands and doing and earning honest day's wages and working hard and those kind of things. So, yes, I think the first part of it, as a lot of people that are talking about finding purpose really are just lazy.
Yeah.
They're just not enjoying the job, you know, and maybe it's not the right job for them. You know, maybe they do need to find another one. But don't quit the one that you got and then go look on the other one. You know, that's what Andrew was saying. A lot of people come to Andrew and they're like, hey, I want to start working out. And Andrew immediately goes, here you go. Here's a workout. Well, instead of taking the workout and going and doing it after work, they start researching to see if he gave them a decent workout or not.
Yeah.
You know, or better than that, they'll start. Well, I think he's right about this exercise, but we're going to add this exercise and not this one, or whatever. And he's the one they went to because he's the one that's in shape. They're the ones that want to be in shape, but yet they're going to tell him, they're going to decide if he gave him good advice or not.
The guy on Instagram said I should be doing this.
Yeah. Or people come to me and, to help them with their marriage and stuff. And they're like, hey, you did good at 4 out of those 10 points, but those other 6, we're just not going to do it. And I'm like, you came to me because your marriage sucks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And when you're talking about influencers and stuff, Argo, I don't get into a lot of that because I couldn't name one influencer to you. That's just not my deal. But something I do hear a lot is I hear a lot of people say, well, my dish didn't come out the way it did on Pinterest.
Yeah.
Like, how you know how their dish come out on Pinterest? You didn't eat that stuff. You know what I'm saying? You didn't get to try it. You're saying yours is not good because you tried it, didn't like it, but you didn't try theirs.
Yeah.
They tried theirs, and they told you it was great, and we don't even know who they is.
Yeah.
We don't even know where they live at. So a lot of these, people that are influencers that tell you all this stuff and everything, man, they're making the most amount off of the least.
Yeah.
So many times. They're making a couple videos a day and making way more money than we are being lazy. But that's not the reality. That isn't going to work for everybody.
Yeah.
And really, that's probably not what you're supposed to be doing.
Sure, and you also don't know what they did to get there.
Right.
That's the other thing,
It's the other side.
I was listening to one guy. Somebody sent it to me one time because I've argued for years. People are like, "Oh, well, this guy says you should do this." I'm like, "That guy's on steroids," and I'm, for the record, I'm not somebody who accuses everybody of being on steroids.
Right.
It is something fun to joke about. Anyone stronger than me, I will tell you you're on steroids. Which is a lot of people, unfortunately. But I have always made that comment for the Instagram influencers and all these people who it's like, guys, those guys are not natural. And then, like, I've been saying that for a long time. And then one guy came out and was like, hey, look, I'm going to shoot y'all straight. Everybody in the influencer community, these are all my friends. All of us are on stuff. It's like he'd come to, he was like, I was for a really long time. Mm-hmm. And he said, and I'm just like, I got to a point where it started to feel guilty about it. And he's like, all these guys are doing stuff and trying to tell you how to do stuff. And it's like, you'd look a lot better too if you were on the stuff we were on, And it's like, but you're seeking after things that you have no way to connect to them. You have no material. You have no substance to it. And it's like, seek counsel from people you know. Don't seek counsel from people you don't know. Seek counsel from people whose lives you can peer into. And you know a lot about them. People with integrity, people with accountability. Like, those are the type of people you want to hear from, because you get some marriage advice from some guy you saw on TV or you watched his television show, and then 2 weeks later, the guy comes out for, having some kind of crazy, scandal going on. And it's like, that's who you've been taking marriage advice from for the last 2 years. And it's like, God is going to put the people in your life that you need in your life, if you trust Him to, And the reality is, they've probably been there a long time, and you just haven't sought them out, for one reason or another. And so, yeah, man,
Well, we see these women all the time that want to look like other women, and you're like, first off, that's not what you're supposed to look like. Second off, you don't know what it costs for her to look like that.
Yeah.
And third off, you don't even really know her.
Yeah.
So her being focused on how she looks so much, what has that done for her? How many times has she been married?
Yeah.
Is she doing what God's called her to do? Is she using that for good, or is she using it for bad? All these kind of different things. A lot of times you got to count the costs, like you're saying. You might see the end product, but at the same time, you got to count the cost to get there. Yeah. Now, the other side of it is, you see these NBA basketball players and NFL basketball players and stuff, and you're like, man, God just gifted that guy. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, He did. But in addition to God gifting that guy, just go follow him around for a day.
Yeah.
I guarantee you his day starts way before your day does. And I guarantee you he does more workouts in a day than you've done in the last month. You know what I'm saying? And so he didn't just get there, and God didn't just give it to him. God gave it to him, and he did something with it.
Yeah.
You know, and so, but that goes back to the lazy person deal. You know, whereas you see people all the time, man, must be nice to be that dude.
Yeah.
It is. And we worked really hard to get here. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. The I'm just gonna throw this out there just because I want to. At least the guys have the decency to do steroids. Women use Photoshop.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like you could do steroids, but you do still have to work out. You still got to do something. You know, that helps a ton.
Yeah.
But you still got to do something. Women, they don't know how to do anything. They just have a well-crafted hand on a computer, and here you are, all of these other women killing themselves to try to achieve a really unhealthy figure in a lot of cases. And like you said, like not people that you would want to desire to be like. Like that's not the life you want. I don't know why you think it's the life you want, but it's not the life that you want.
This weekend, it just really bothered me because I want to see people get better in life. That's what, that's what you want. That's what I want. That's what Jesus Cartel is all about, is seeing people reach their full potential in life, right? But this weekend, there come and it might have been last week, but there's a little trend on Facebook. I'm not on the Snapchat and Instagram and where you got all the filters and stuff, but on Facebook, there's certain things that pop up, and there was this thing, I guess, that you could push, and all these women were pushing this thing, and it made them look like a different person.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
And so you'd see a little bit of their facial features, just a little bit, but then you'd see them different. They'd be on a motorcycle, or they'd be this or whatever, and there was a few different ones. One of them was like a Western type deal. One of them, I think, was on a motorcycle. One of them was something. And so these women are, one of them pushes a button. Now they're all going to push a button, right?
Hundreds of those.
Hundreds of them, And so they're all on there because mine and my wife's Facebook's together. So because they're together, we have a lot of women on our Facebook, Well, not all of them, but a lot of them are pushing this button. And so every one of them know that the reason why she looks like this is because they pushed this button. And because one of them pushed it, now they're all wanting to push it, and everybody's pushing. And if that's what you want to do is push that button to get that picture, that's fine. But they started taking it to the next level. So other women didn't know they pushed a button on this because they've pushed the same button. Now look at this picture of this girl and say, "Ooh, girl, you be fine," or "You're smoking hot," or all this. I'm like, they pushed a button.
Yeah.
The same one you pushed.
Yeah.
So you're telling them how great they look in something that's not real. It's a filter.
Yeah.
And it's a filter.
Yeah.
So we've gotten to a society that praises people for pushing a button.
Yeah. It is
for
insane.
A filter.
Yeah. I'm going to go Photoshop my face onto Terry Cruz's body later and share it and see if people will compliment me on my tone.
I don't
physique.
even know who Terry Crews is. But
you do. You just don't know.
I'm sure it's great. Yeah. Is that the Incredible Hulk?
Yeah, he's about that size. Okay. Yeah. He's a very large, muscular black man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've gotten to such a lazy society that we reward people for stupidity. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
And it bothers me.
This episode has got really dark.
It bothers me because I'm like, ain't you got more to do?
Yeah.
And do that, go do something.
Yeah.
Go jog a lap. Go run a mile. Go do something.
Yeah.
But everybody pushing the same button.
Yeah.
And then complimenting each other on how the filter comes out. It's really kind of weird.
Yeah.
But you know what? We do try to appease to everybody, and we went from the farming community to alienating everyone out there all in one episode.
I think that here's the reason, though, because the question was about purpose.
Yeah.
People who are constantly seeking purpose. And I think that what we've seen is people aren't seeking purpose anymore. They're seeking affirmation.
There you go.
But that's not new. People have sought affirmation for a long time. But we've reached a point in culture where people are seeking affirmation and they haven't done anything. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the button.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to work out. I'm not going to eat better, but I am going to use this AI to filter and make me look different and hope people tell me how pretty I am. Yeah. You know, or dude, and I don't want to alienate women on this situation either, because I got a lot of guy friends out there that use them same filters. And it's like, I have a buddy share a picture, like change his profile picture. It's like, brother, we all know that's not you. Like, we all know. And I need you to take that down, because you're going to really disappoint a woman when she meets you. Like, you think your feelings are hurt now because nobody's telling you how great you look. Wait until you ask one out on a date. She sees you at the restaurant and about faces and just leaves when she sees what you actually look like. Like, stop living in a facade. Right. Everything that you want to change about you, which for the record is not a great mindset to begin with. But if you're just so convinced that it has to happen, it can be done through hard work and through discipline. It absolutely can.
Amen.
All right. There were some things I didn't like about myself. They weren't physical things. It wasn't because I was physically perfect. I just never really cared. I mean, I didn't care how I looked my whole life. It's just, I think it's a blessing, you know, that I was unconcerned with stuff like that. But there was a lot of traits about myself that I didn't like. And I worked really, really hard to get a grip on those and to change those. There is no filter for your personality. Right. There's no filter to make you not afraid of the things that you're afraid of. You know, there's no button to push. And so, dude, I had to work to change them. And I did. And I'm so much happier as a person now because I put the work in to actually have real change. Because at the end of the day, you can share as many filtered photos as you want to, but when you go to the mirror at night, you're still looking at the same thing, and you're still going to feel just as empty. Start working hard now. Yeah. And in 6 months, you could start to see some real change. You might not be all the way there yet, but you could see some significant, dramatic change that could, I mean, it's going to change the way that you feel about yourself. It's going to change the way other people feel about you. And it may help push you towards actually finding the purpose that you're seeking. But hiding behind something that's not real is never going to get you closer to purpose.
Amen. You know, and I want to move to the next one, but before we do, because I think we did come up with 3 right there, you know, just off the fly that would be good areas. But before we get to that is, you know, you're talking about personality, talking about, you know, changing things or whatever. You know, for some people, they, you know, and you were talking about filters and seeing them without the filter and not liking that. I'll take it a different step along with that is there's a lot of people posting Christian things on Facebook, you know, or Instagram or whatever, and then not walking those things out.
Yeah.
So people see that on Facebook, they think, "Ooh, that's a good person." Then they see them in a Walmart checkout line, or then they see them later on Facebook, or then they see this, and they realize that it was just a filter. Yep. It wasn't true, you know. And so just because you post something on Facebook doesn't mean that you're going to change and start that. But now, you know, so what some people need to do is start believing the scriptures or believing the words that they post. Mm-hmm. You know, how do you find purpose? By believing that the word is true, and believing will lead to right living and doing those things. And so it's not just physical filters, but it's facades that people put up. You know, I know a ton of people, man, they'll put up these scriptures of how good God is, but yet they're coming to me because their marriage is in shambles, and it's their fault.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, not only can people start working on their physical to feel better about themselves, but they can also start working on their spiritual and believing in the songs that they sing and believing in the scriptures that they quote and believing in the, you know, poems that they put on Facebook and those kind of things. And so those, you know, That's something we can do. So the first thing, when we talk about a lot of people having purpose, we just said a lot of people, aren't really looking for purpose. They're just wanting more out of life without giving what they're supposed to be given, or they just want a better job, or really they're just lazy or facade. And then the second thing, is that a lot of people, God's already showed them what He wants them to do. They're just not listening.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes back to what you were saying. To make changes in your life, sometimes that's difficult. Change can be difficult. Change can be hard. Not impossible.
Yeah.
But it can be difficult. So why don't we talk about that a little bit more, about, the person that God's already kind of showed it to them. They just haven't walked in it yet.
Yeah, and it's super common. And a lot of times it's we were talking the other day, I think I mentioned this as well. Naaman had a situation like that. Naaman was a leper. He went to Elijah. He wanted to be healed, and he was given instructions about how he could be healed, and he didn't like the instructions, and he was basically like, I'm not going to do that. And one of the people that was with Naaman was like, if he would have asked you to do something that would bring you honor, you would have done it. Like, if he asked you to do something that would bring you valor or make you look better, you'd have been all over it. But because he did something that was going to expose you, it was going to be difficult for you to do because you were going to have to expose a part of yourself you didn't want people to see, and you didn't do anything. And that is the reason a lot of people don't walk in their purpose, is because, God tells them to do something they don't think is big enough. This isn't going to bring me enough clout. This isn't going to bring me enough glory. If I can't preach in front of the whole church, I don't want to preach in front of 3 guys in a small group. That's not for me. I got to be here. If I can't sing at the small group, I need to sing on the worship team. I need to be that, and there's a time and place for all those things. But if you can't be obedient in the small things, then you don't need to be in the big things, because you're gonna dishonor them. You're gonna make them about you instead of about Him, and I think that's where most of that comes from. I don't think that it's so much that it's just right there and they're like they can't see it or anything. There are cases like that, like the one that you were referencing earlier. That's a case like that, where this guy is absolutely killing it right now and doesn't realize how much he's killing it.
Right.
And
I mean? That might be point 3 that we talk about a little bit more. But, with this one, it's a little more of, God has showed it, but it didn't line up with their plan.
Yeah.
And so, but if your plan worked so good, then why do you feel so empty?
Yeah.
And so we see that a lot, to where, they hear from God, they hear from God, but yet they're just not willing to lay down their life to follow the Lord.
Yep.
Now, and something that you were saying about, sometimes they just might not think that it's big enough, and then sometimes God's got to show you the small version of it, because if He shows you the big version of it, it'll seem so overwhelming.
Yeah.
You got some people that are like, man, why do I want to preach to 3 when I need to be preaching to 300 or 3,000? And then you got other ones that if God showed them that they'd eventually be preaching to 300 or 3,000, they would never preach to 3.
Yep.
But I think God knows us. He created us, and He knows what angle to come at us from, as far as showing us things. I think that, sometimes God has to show us the small version, or we would never step into the large version. And then sometimes God needs to be able to trust us enough to show us a big picture, and not, and for us to know that's not for now, but I need to get prepared for now. But I think this category of people is more of, God's vision doesn't fit into their box.
Yep.
And so they don't walk into that. So they keep asking me, reading a book, asking this one, whatever, what is my purpose? Because they want something that lines up with what they already want.
They're begging for somebody to accidentally say what they're already thinking. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, God's saying that you need to be the next prophet. You know what I mean? It's like, I knew it. You know what I mean? Like, and just as soon as you said it, they'd stop asking everybody. But that's not the reality. And the thing is I can tell you this, because any of you that feel like you need that, that would be the worst thing for you. It'd be the worst thing for you. There's a time in my life that if I would have been in front of a lot of people, it would have been the worst thing that ever happened to me. And that's just the reality of it. And so if you need that kind of affirmation, you really don't need that kind of, that affirmation will be what destroys you.
Right. And then the third guy, we're basically about out of time, but the third guy is the one, like we talked about earlier, that man is doing what God's called him to do. And but for some reason on the inside, he feels like maybe it's not enough or whatever, but really he's crushing it. Yep. And he's doing great, and he's helping so many people around him, and the avenues that are using is ways that other people couldn't use,
yep.
And everything, and other people are looking at him, and they're like, man, he's crushing it, and he's thinking, man, I wonder if I'm doing the right thing or not, and a lot of that is just being confident in your relationship with the Lord.
Yep.
So he's not necessarily seeking purpose as much as he's just really wanting to be in tune with the Lord. And so you need people to come alongside you and say, hey man, you're doing the right thing, because this guy's like, man, do I need to do this full time or do I need to do this full time? But really, he's doing the perfect combination of both right now. Now, it might not stay that way forever. Seasons change, things change, and whatever. But we've said it several times on here. I want to just say it again, that more important than God's plan is his timing.
Mm-hmm.
More important than God's plan is his timing. And so, right now, hey, where am I supposed to be right now? Hey, we can be visionaries and we can look for the future and we can do those things, but we also got to be content with where God's got us right now. Not content staying there, but content where he has us now for this time, knowing that, hey, things are probably going to change. Especially, and I just want to say this, and like I said, we're almost through, but in ministry and stuff, most of the time, the group that starts a ministry together isn't the group that sees it all the way out.
Yep.
Maybe nobody in the group, maybe one person in the group, but hardly ever does the group of people that start something they're not called to be the ones to carry it out long term.
Yeah.
So seasons are going to change, things are going to change, and we just got to stay in tune with God's will instead of our will. Yeah. Any other comments on that?
Yeah, there's just real quick, there's a thought that, if you could know exactly the moment and place you would die, would you want to know? I think that most people probably wouldn't.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I think it would create, you'd spend your life avoiding it and all these different things. It'd become a nightmare for you. And I think that for a lot of people, they're trying to kind of get to that same finality in their relationship with the Lord. Like, where's the last place that I'm supposed to be? Where's this all supposed to finish for me? And the reality is that you really don't want to know that right now. It's not because it would be a bad thing. It's you would spend so much time relentlessly pursuing that thing that you'd miss what you're supposed to be doing right now. And I can tell you that, for years and years and years, all I wanted to do was be a full-time minister. I mean, I scratched, kicked, and clawed to be a full-time minister. And now that I'm still technically in full-time ministry, but not like I was, not where I was just at the church. And once I kind of got there and was there for a few years, I was like, man, I don't want to do this. You know what I mean? I was so certain that that's what ultimately I needed, because, man, I'd have all the time in the world to do all this stuff. And really, I realized I was doing more before. Mm-hmm. And so I found a way to get back at some other things,
right,
to where I wasn't so free. And, you think it sounds strange, like I was able to do more with less time, but that was the reality. Mm-hmm. And God used the other things to cultivate real relationships in me that would carry those things out. And
yep,
so that's something that I think that we miss a lot of times.
Yeah, I do too. That's kind of a lot of the same word that I gave this morning,
Yeah.
Hey, look, we love y'all. Please don't cancel us after this episode. I think we hit a lot. It's all out of love, and we appreciate y'all.
Yeah, don't filter your pictures. Bye.
Bye-bye.